Some people think respect has an age limit. They see an older person struggle with a coat, count their change a little slower, ask the same question twice, and they decide that person doesn't matter anymore. They forget the years, the battles, the sacrifices that came long before the wrinkles. That's exactly what happened that morning. Two bikers slammed an elderly veteran against a diner table, laughing as if her fear were entertainment. To them, she was alone, defenseless, forgettable. But in the corner, booth sat a man whose entire life had been built on the courage of people like her. Jasonstatham pushed his chair back and rose to his feet. And the bikers didn't know it yet. But karma had already started knocking. Before we continue, thank you for watching and supporting these stories. If you enjoy emotional, grounded narratives where real heroes step in at the moments that matter most, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. It truly helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life. Mornings at Ruby's diner were usually quiet, soft country music, the smell of fresh coffee, sunlight stretching through the windows like warm hands waking up the day. Most people came for the pancakes, the endless refills, or the comfort of a place that hadn't changed in 50 years. But one person came for something else entirely. Her name was Margaret Elwood, though almost nobody used it. To the regulars, she was simply Miss Maggs, the tiny, sharp-eyed veteran who wore an old field jacket even in summer and ordered the same breakfast every day. One egg, half toast, and black coffee she always drank slowly, as if carefully rationing each memory tied to it. She was 92 years old, and if age had borrowed her strength, it had never taken her dignity. The staff adored her, travelers respected her. Even the teenagers who usually hung outside the convenience store stopped their noise whenever she walked past, as though something in her posture reminded them to behave. But that morning, respect wasn't in the room. The bell over the diner door clanged hard, too hard, and two bikers stepped inside like they owned the air. Black vests, chains, boots heavy enough to shake dust from the floor. They weren't locals. Rubies hardly ever got the type who rode in like thunder and laughed like they were allergic to silence. Maggs didn't notice them at first. She was busy adjusting her silverware, lining it up with precise military neatness. Her hands shook now, but her discipline never did. The waitress, a young woman named Kayla, looked up from the counter, eyes tightening. She knew trouble when it walked in wearing leather and attitude. "Morning," she said carefully. The taller biker smirked. "Morning, sweetheart, 2 coffees and whatever's hot." She nodded but didn't smile. She had learned early in life that not all customers deserved warmth. The bikers sat in a booth near the door, loud enough that every word reached Maggs's table. One of them kicked his boots up, ignoring the "no feet on furniture" sign taped right next to him. Kayla brought them their coffees. They didn't say thank you. They didn't look at her either, just kept talking about settling business in town, whatever that meant. Maggs quietly sipped her coffee and tried to focus on her newspaper. Her eyes moved slowly. Cataracts were creeping in, though she pretended she didn't notice. Every so often, she'd trace her finger over the headline, as though relearning the rhythm of words she once read without effort. Then the shorter biker noticed her. He elbowed his friend. "Hey, you see Granny Commando over there?" The tall one laughed. "Damn, someone dusted her off from a museum." Kayla froze mid-step. The diner quieted, tension sneaking through the air like smoke. Maggs didn't look up, not because she didn't hear them, because she had spent a lifetime choosing which battles were worth her breath. But bullies never take silence as a warning. They take it as permission. The shorter biker stood. His boots scraped the floor as he walked toward her, coffee in hand and mischief in his eyes. Kayla moved quickly to cut him off, but he shifted around her with a grin. "Well, if it ain't Captain Grandma," he said, leaning over Maggs's table. "Where's your platoon?" "Cemetery." A couple sitting nearby frowned, but no one stood. People rarely did when they should. Maggs finally lifted her eyes. They weren't weak. They weren't frightened. They were tired, but not of him, not of the insult. Tired of the world forgetting what people like her had already endured to give men like him the freedom to laugh. But she didn't speak. Her lips pressed into a thin, steady line. The biker grabbed her toast crust from the edge of her plate. "My grandma can't eat solids either, Must be a senior thing. Kayla stepped in fast. "Sir, I need you to leave her alone." "Relax," he said, waving her off. "We're just bonding." He reached for Mags's coffee mug next. That was when her hand, small, wrinkled, trembling, snapped upward and grabbed his wrist with surprising precision. Every soldier in Ruby's diner could have recognized what it was. A reflex rooted in training. In drills. In survival. The biker laughed. "Easy, Granny, you'll break a hip." Kayla grabbed his arm. "Sir, that's enough." He shoved her. Hard. She stumbled into a table, barely catching herself before she fell. Dishes clattered. That was when the tall biker stood, pushing his booth seat so far back it nearly toppled. "Aw hell," he drawled. "If she wants to play tough, let's show her what tough feels like." A murmur rippled through the diner. Still no one stood. Not yet. The tall biker grabbed Mags's arm and yanked her out of the booth. Her cane clattered to the floor. The sound of it echoed like something sacred breaking. Mags cried out as her knee buckled. The shorter biker laughed as if watching a comedy show. They shoved her again, right onto the table where silverware scattered like startled birds. "Hey," Kayla yelled, voice cracking. "Stop." But the bikers weren't listening. The tall one leaned close to Mags's face. "Should have stayed home, Grandma." He didn't notice her eyes then. Not the fear, not the pain, something else. Something fierce. "Boys." A calm voice cut through the chaos. Not loud. Not angry. Not rushed. Just there. Like gravity. The bikers turned. A man rose slowly from the far corner booth, the one nearest the wall where the morning light didn't reach. He had been sitting alone, hooded jacket, coffee untouched, reading something old and weathered. A man most people wouldn't have noticed. But now he was walking toward them, each step deliberate, steady, controlled. Jasonstatham. The name meant nothing to the bikers, but it meant everything to Kayla. She exhaled in relief the moment she saw him. It meant everything to Mags as well, because even in her fading eyesight, she recognized that stance, that walk, that contained power. The tall biker snorted. "What's your problem, mate?" Jason ignored the question. "You're holding her wrong." The diner went still. "What?" the short biker barked. Jason pointed slightly. "Her arm, you're twisting it. You'll dislocate her shoulder. Don't do that." The tall biker laughed. "Or what? You gonna teach us, old man?" Jason breathed in once. Slow. He wasn't old, not in the way they meant, but age didn't matter. Composure did. He stepped closer. "You're going to let her go," he said lightly. "Now." The tall biker squeezed Mags's arm harder, just to show off. "And if we do?" Jason looked at him, actually looked. Not with anger. Not with intimidation. With decision. "If you do," he said calmly, "you won't leave this room the way you entered it." A few people gasped. The bikers smirked. "You talk big," the tall one said. "You a cop?" Jason shook his head. "Worse." The shorter biker stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. "This dude's lost it. Let's teach him a lesson." Kayla whispered, "Jason, please be careful." But Jason didn't take his eyes off the bikers. "Walk away," he said, "while you still can." The tall biker shoved Mags again. She cried out in pain. Jason's expression shifted, only slightly, enough for the room to feel it. He walked right up to them. The tall biker swung. Jason caught his wrist midair. Twisted. Pinned. No wasted movement. The biker hit the ground with a strangled shout. The shorter biker lunged next. Jason sidestepped, using the man's momentum against him, sending him crashing into the counter so hard the napkin holder toppled. The tall one tried to stand. Jason placed a boot on his chest, not crushing, just controlling. "Stay down," he said softly. But the biker grabbed his leg, trying to pull him off balance. Jason shifted his weight, neutralizing the attempt, then bent down slightly so only the man beneath him could hear. "You touched a veteran," he murmured. "That's why you're on the floor, not because you're weak, but because she's stronger than you ever will be." The biker's face twisted with anger, but Jason released him anyway, stepping back as if giving him a choice. "A chance." A way out. But bullies don't take exits, they try to take revenge. The tall biker reached into his vest. Someone screamed. Kayla covered her mouth. Jason froze, not with fear but calculation. The biker's hand came out fast, but not with a gun. A knife. Jason's jaw tightened. Mags whispered, "Son, do." The shorter biker stumbled to his feet too, grabbing a fork from a table like it was a weapon. The diner had become a battlefield. Every patron watched, frozen, terrified, unblinking. Jason inhaled once, and everything in him settled. A decision had been made. But before the bikers could move, Mags's trembling voice rose, cut through the tension, and created a silence even violence couldn't fill. "Son, those men aren't worth your freedom." Jason looked at her. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes, not of the bikers but of harming them too much, of proving them right, of letting anger choose for him. He lowered his stance slightly, adjusting, not to retreat but to restrain. The bikers didn't understand the shift. But Jason did. He wasn't fighting for pride, or dominance, or ego. He was fighting for her. He stepped forward, and then the diner door swung open. 2 more bikers walked in. Rougher, meaner, eyes cold as steel. One of them saw the scene and grinned. "Well, boys," he said, cracking his neck, "looks like we walked in at the right time." Kayla's knees nearly gave out. Mags gasped. And Jason didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe for a second. Because now it wasn't random trouble. This was a gang. An organized one. And they had just outnumbered the entire diner. The tall biker on the floor smirked up at Jason through split lips. "You're dead now," he whispered. "You don't know who we are." Jason stared down at him. "I don't need to know," he replied softly. He turned his head slightly toward the newly arrived bikers, just enough that they noticed. "Because I know exactly who I am." The diner went so quiet you could hear the ceiling fan turning. Not one fork clinked. Not one breath dared to be loud. The 2 new bikers stood in the doorway, broad-shouldered, leather-clad, faces stamped with the kind of arrogance that grows in men who have never been told no. They scanned the scene, the knocked-over chairs, the trembling waitress, the old woman clutching the edge of her table, and Jasonstatham standing like a wall between violence and everyone else. The taller newcomer cracked a grin. "Well, damn, look what Tiny started." The biker on the floor growled, lifting his bleeding lip. "Guy thinks he's a damn hero." Jason didn't respond. He didn't posture or taunt. He simply shifted his weight, the kind of shift that meant he had already calculated every body in the room, every distance, every possible outcome. Years of training had carved that instinct into his bones. "Listen," Jason said evenly, "you and your friends need to walk out that door. Nobody here wants trouble." The shorter newcomer laughed hard. "We are trouble." Jason blinked once. "No," he said, "your noise, there's a difference." The words slipped out calm as water, but they cut like a blade. One patron near the window covered their mouth to hide an involuntary gasp. The tall newcomer rolled his shoulders. "So that's how you want to play it." He stepped forward. Kayla whispered, "Jason, please." He gave her a tiny shake of his head, not to silence her but to reassure her. The tall newcomer jabbed a finger toward Jason. "You think knocking down my boys makes you brave? You know how many of us are outside." Jason didn't answer. The biker smirked. 12. A murmur moved through the diner. Fear, disbelief, panic. 12. Even Jason's jaw tightened. "See," the biker said, "you can't take all of us. Hell, you can barely take him." He nudged the biker Jason had pinned earlier. Mag straightened in her seat as much as her aching back allowed. "Son, don't listen to him. They're cowards. That's why they hunt in packs." One of the newcomers barked, "Shut it, Grandma." Jason's eyes snapped toward him, sharp, focused, cold. "You don't speak to her," Jason said quietly, "ever." The biker smirked. "Or what, you gonna shut me up?" Jason's voice dropped to a tone that didn't need volume to carry weight. "Yes." The tall newcomer had heard enough. "Boys," he said, waving the others forward, "teach him some manners." The two original bikers pushed themselves upright, one holding the knife, the other clutching a metal fork like a weapon. The newcomers advanced from behind, circling Jason. 5 against 1. The diner collectively held its breath. Jason closed his eyes for half a second, not fear, not hesitation, but focus. A reset, the mind clearing before the body moved. The tall newcomer lunged first. Jason sidestepped and redirected the man's momentum, smashing his face into the nearest table. The entire diner shook from the impact. Before the biker could recover, Jason swept his leg out, sending him collapsing onto broken dishes. 1 down. The knife-wielding biker charged next, slashing wildly. Jason leaned back, the blade missing him by inches. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted sharply, and slammed it into the booth frame. The knife clattered to the floor. Jason kicked it away. The man screamed, clutching his wrist. 2 down. But the danger wasn't done. The short newcomer grabbed a coffee pot and swung it like a club. Hot liquid sloshed everywhere. Jason ducked, grabbed a chair with one hand and jammed it into the attacker's chest, knocking the air out of him. 3 down. The original shorter biker jumped on Jason's back, wrapping an arm around his neck. Jason grabbed his forearm, dropped his weight low, and flipped him clean over his shoulder. The man crashed onto the linoleum, sliding into the counter. 4 down. Only one remained, the tall original biker, the meanest of them all. He steadied himself, wiped blood from his mouth, and stared at Jason with hatred boiling in his eyes. "You just signed your death warrant," he hissed. Jason didn't flinch. "You came in here, hurt an innocent woman, attacked a server, threatened everyone in this room. I didn't sign anything. You did." The biker roared and charged. Jason didn't move until the last second. Then he stepped aside, grabbed the man by the vest, and slammed him against the wall with controlled precision. Not enough to break anything, but enough to end the fight. The man crumpled to the ground, breathless. 5 down. The diner went silent again, not with fear this time, but awe. Kayla stared at Jason with trembling relief. "How did you?" Jason shook his head, his chest rising and falling a little quicker now. "No time." Because outside, the rumble of engines began. Low, deep, multiplying. The 12 bikers. They were here. Kayla ran to the window and peeked out. "Jason, they're surrounding the building." Mag's wrinkled hand shook as she reached for her cane. "Son, run. You've done enough." Jason picked up the cane and gently set it back in place. "I'm not running. Neither are you." Mag's voice cracked. "They'll kill you." He met her eyes. "Ma'am, I've met men far worse than them." The engines cut off outside. Boots hit gravel. The door swung open. A massive man stepped in, tattoos, thick beard, arms like tree trunks. The patch on his vest said Ridge Vipers President. He looked at the injured men on the floor. He looked at Jason. He didn't blink. "So," the president said, "you're the tough guy who put 5 of my boys down." Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. The president cracked his knuckles and nodded once. 2 of his men pushed through the doorway, standing on either side of him. "You know what happens now," the president growled. Jason glanced back at Kayla and Mags, making sure they were behind him. Then he faced the president fully. "Yeah," Jason said, "I protect these people and you walk out." The president laughed, loud, confident, cruel. "Walk out? You think you're sending us anywhere?" Jason shrugged, "Not thinking, I'm hoping." The president stepped closer. "You ex-military?" Jason didn't reply. The biker nodded as if he had confirmed something. "Yeah, I see it now. The stance, the breathing, the way you scan the room, you're trained. Dangerous even." He leaned in. "But you're alone, we're not." Jason's voice stayed calmly steady. "You're right." Everyone in the diner froze. Jason stepped slightly forward. "I am alone." He nodded toward the tables. "They're civilians." Then his eyes hardened, just a little, just enough. "But I only need one man to end this." The president's grin faltered. Jason wasn't bluffing. He wasn't boasting. He was stating a fact. The president lunged. Jason sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and struck his ribs with a controlled elbow. The biker grunted but didn't go down. He swung wide, powerful but predictable. Jason ducked and countered with a palm strike to the sternum, enough to stagger him. Behind them, one of the president's men pulled a chain from his belt and swung it toward Jason's head. Kayla screamed. Jason ducked at the last fraction of a second, the chain slicing the air inches from his temple. He grabbed a metal napkin holder and deflected the next swing, then kicked the attacker's knee from the side, dropping him instantly. The president stumbled back, catching his breath. "This ain't over," he roared. Jason exhaled. "It can be." But the president wasn't listening. He charged again, wild, furious, sloppy. Jason moved behind him, hooked an arm under his, and brought him down in a controlled restraint hold. The president slammed against the floor, pinned. Jason leaned down, his voice low enough that only the president could hear. "You pick on vets, you threaten waitresses, you terrorize small towns. That ends now. You're going to leave quietly or you're not leaving at all." The president thrashed under him, then slowly stilled. "Fine," he spat. "We're leaving. Get off me." Jason pulled back. The president stood, wiping blood from his mouth, glaring at his fallen crew. "Mount up," he barked. The remaining bikers stumbled outside, beaten pride dragging behind them. Engines roared back to life. Before stepping out, the president pointed a grimy finger at Jason. "This town ain't seen the last of us." Jason stepped forward, not threatening, just present. "You will if you're smart." The president hesitated, just for a second. Then he left. Engines rumbled away. Silence settled over the diner once more. Kayla's legs gave out, and she sat on the nearest stool, covering her face. A couple hugged each other near the window. One man whispered, "Thank God." Jason finally turned toward Mags. She was crying silently. He knelt beside her. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She nodded, wiping her tears with a trembling hand. "You remind me of someone," she whispered. "One of my boys from the unit, strong, quiet, decent." Jason smiled faintly. "You remind me of people who made me who I am." Mag's lips quivered. "They're not all like that anymore. Young men today, sometimes I wonder what happened to respect." Jason took her hand gently. "Respect isn't gone. Some people just forget where it started." Kayla approached, eyes red. "Jason, if you hadn't been here." "I was here," he said simply. "That's what matters." Mag squeezed his hand. "Thank you, son." Jason shook his head. "You served this country. I just paid a small debt." He stood, adjusting his jacket. Kayla hesitated. Where are you going now?" Jason glanced outside, the sky a pale blue, the road quiet again. "Somewhere peaceful," he said. "Somewhere quiet." He walked toward the door. But before stepping out, he looked back one last time. At Mags, sitting tall despite her trembling shoulders, at Kayla, standing a little straighter, at the patrons who had witnessed something they might never forget. Jason nodded once, a silent promise that they were safe. Then he stepped into the sunlight. The diner door closed behind him with a soft jingle, gentle, final, like the end of a chapter. And as Jason walked down the road, hands in his pockets, head lowered against the morning breeze, one thought settled quietly in his mind. Strength doesn't fade. It simply chooses when to show itself.